Alright, it's time. It's time to show off what are the top 10 charts that are the hardest in all of DDR singles. Now, here are the rules. This is going to be based off my opinion on the charts, not necessarily a global one. I'll make a Google form for that. But the charts are going to be based off their passing difficulty primarily. Like, the rankings are nearly exclusively on passing difficulty, and scoring just playing a tiebreaker role. There's also not going to be any sort of speed or turn mods involved in the ranking of each song. These will be qualified on their own merit, including speed gimmicks, stops, and all sorts of challenging step patterns, no matter how imbalanced they are. Cause let's be honest, if Konami wrote the charts in some way, then they're intended to be played that specific way. Let's get this going. Alright, number 10. Paranoia Hades Challenge. Alright, this is an unorthodox choice, but here's what I think of it. This is one of the charts that I feel like will probably make me suffer a lot before I can clear it again. Like, it's a tame BPM, standing at 150, but what makes this stand out from other contenders like Endemium Expert, Strip Machine Evolution Challenge, and Max Period Challenge is basically the fact that it's, let's say, lower BPMs allow step artists to take even bigger risk with their charts. Hence why there's so many jumps and crossovers in this chart. Like, the step charts are made so you play most of the time sideways or inverted, cause it's just overly a nightmare. And the ending doesn't even get any better. You really don't get any breaks in the final stream. And the fact that they put a random jump in the middle of it and literally two jumps almost close together and joined by an eighth in between, I don't believe this is going to be an easy run for anyone. Hopefully, everyone will understand the placement here. There are a lot of contenders, very few level 18 slots left. Now let's go to number 9. Lacrima Expert. Oh boy. This chart it's a massive stamina test. That's literally the most I can think about. I mean, its BPM is 236, already being one of the fastest charts in the DDR series to actually use 16th, like if it was its native BPM. But it kind of gets worse when it actually uses different kinds of steps between 12th, 16th drills, of which are very tiring, mind you, and various combinations of 8th. If you thought Valkyrie Dimension Challenge was bad enough, well, this one is native to 236, so yeah. This is why we're going to talk about this challenge chart later on, but let's go now to number 8. Possession 20th Anniversary Mix Challenge. This one is a little bit of a bag of pretty much everything. It has crossovers, it has shock arrows, it has all sorts of really tough steps to handle. And to be honest, I honestly have a bit of a hard time with this one. Like, it's really tricky. And the fact that it actually makes you do borderline 360-degree spin here, yeah. This will be a pretty good practice song before taking on 19. Granted, there are no 19s yet as of A20 Plus that have any sort of shock arrows, but we'll see. Possession 20th Anniversary also has a pretty modest BPM at 190, some stops and speed changes. Although they aren't exactly gimmicky like one will say a Chaos Terror Tech mix, it's still something to be aware of. Let's go to the next one. Number 7. Paranoia Revolution Hades Challenge. Now, I pretty much played this one recently, and I actually managed to make it through almost to the end, so I pretty much had this change of position last minute. I just feel like the other charts are coming, they are a little harder for their own merits, but it's a pretty close competition between a lot of them. So what makes this one hard? It's a pretty imbalanced chart. A lot of people choose to play turn mods because the chart is mostly schemed to doing right up left and left down right crossovers. Now, it's not the only thing, it does have its own vertical crossovers, but a lot of people are more traumatized by the horizontal ones. Now, even with the fact that horizontal crossovers dominate in this chart, there's other reasons to be wary about, which is the fact that it sometimes makes you do some real really ridiculous turns that you'd either be forced to bracket or might as well just train your waist to make really violent turns. The song is vicious in itself, but it is not the worst. It runs at 180 BPM, which is the slowest among 19s. It also has some pretty unique steps that I like. I will be honest, the chart uses a lot of conventional wisdom to just make the player's life that much of a nightmare. Alright, let's go to number 6. Egoism Challenge. This chart, I've also played it, and this is the very reason I put Paranoia Hades below Egoism. Like, 220 BPM is still ridiculously painful to do on pad, let alone without a bar. I honestly feel this one will probably give me a lot more trouble to clear. I honestly can just do most of the first half without going through too much trouble because it's mostly just running in one direction. But when it comes to the latter half, when I'm already tired and just beat up, yeah, like how am I supposed to gather the strength when my feet barely want to move anymore from just how much I've been stepping in the same song? Having a minute and a half crammed with over 800 steps like this, yeah, it's good reason to put this above Paranoia Hades Challenge. This isn't without mentioning that it uses some triplets, has a fuck ton of stops in a couple turns that literally will take anyone by surprise if they haven't even challenged the song yet. To the next one. Number 5. Valkyrie Dimension Challenge. This is kind of going to be the first heavy wall you're going to encounter when it comes to level 19 charts. Valkyrie Dimension Challenge really just sets the tone for what will come of DDR later on. With its legendary 480 BPM 8th stream, it's going to be a little bit of a tough one, if I'm honest. Like, if I already complained about me not being able to handle 220 BPM very well, imagine 240 BPM 16th. But somehow I actually am capable of handling the majority of the chart right up until the very end when the crossover stream takes over. So in general, this one is kind of among the easier ones once you get the 480 BPM stream handled. But it's not going to be a free pass. If you haven't practiced crossovers, you might as well do that before taking on this chart. Its BPM mostly plays around 180, with the exception of the first quarter of the song. Luckily, there's another thing I want to add that actually reduces the difficulty of this chart, and it's the existence of charts like Lacrima CSP, among other similarly BPM songs that are already starting to compete with others. Let's go to the next ones. Number 4. Over the Period Challenge. If you're able to actually pass this, even though there's a literal 840 BPM section with a step pattern I haven't even seen on slower BPMs, then really well done. It's just that much of a nightmare. I cannot imagine still doing this without bracketing, simply because it's really unfathomable. Like, I try to do this on a dry rise to 420 BPM stream, and those crossovers, those turns, how the fuck do we even do that? So yeah, that's going to be one massive wall there that will forbid anyone from getting through if they can't bracket right or do the steps. And this is just one of the obstacles. Like, the chart is really tough all over, but it really ramps up in the last part, which is like the last third of the song, because the crossovers really get intense, making you consistently spin around, literally back and forth. It's retarded. And the last part, you might as well hope you can actually do something, because by the time you're in that last little section, it's going to be trying. But when it comes to the next charts that are going to talk about, yeah, you're going to need a lot more than just being lucky. Number 3, Max 360 Challenge. Oh boy, this is a record when it comes to steps. The first chart that actually reaches 1000 combo. This is legendary and very painful if you think about it. I mean, it runs at 360 BPM, but there's a lot of 12s here going on, especially in the death run that comes after the 720 BPM suspense speed up, I guess. And if you want to know what those equate to, It's 270 BPM 16th. That's faster than Illegal Function Call. That's faster than New Era and Valkyrie Dimension Challenge. That's faster than Lacrima. Oh, damn it. What else can I say about this chart? Well, it's pretty passable. Most of the crossovers and steps are vertically based, so you won't be facing sideways while trying to do some of the steps. Of course, that doesn't mean there's going to be a few little shitheads here and there, but it's mostly tame when it comes to crossovers and speed gimmicks as well. It mostly just does the last part, which does do some stops, but it doesn't do anything significant enough to like take you off guard and completely fuck you over. Let's go to the next two. Here we go. Number 2, Endemium Challenge. I know, you're disappointed that I'm disagreeing with the majority of people, but let me explain. Endemium Challenge is just a fucking nightmare indeed, but it runs at 220 BPM. But this one is very painful in its own respect, but it has a lot of breaks. It has just enough to at least let you breathe, although it keeps ramping up at every little point. This one starts you off really badly, and generally if you pass this one, it means you pretty much passed all the other 19s I've talked before. It has a lot of crossovers. It is very crazy with the gimmicks, going up as far as 880 BPM, with steps on top of that. Also has a lot of crossovers and does lead to jumps with only a 440 BPM 8th time gap to switch from a step to a jump. That is really bad, and this is something I probably take a really long time to get even to the halfway point. And it also has a lot of jumps on top of that, especially in the end. Like, it just tries to finish you up with jumps, which we all know are awfully hard to do in DDR, especially if you're doing it without the bar, which shit gets even worse to even control yourself. You better be ready to spin around and make sure you have some good fitness if you want to clear this chart. On to the final one. Number 1, Lacrima Challenge. Pretty sure everyone's surprised, but here's what I think. It's 236 BPM. I already talked about this chart, but it amps up what we already talked about to a 10th degree. Its 16 streams aren't the worst, but they're still very brutal to handle. And it also has 12 streams, which are still pretty challenging to take, although they're actually a little slower than the other charts. But what makes this chart quite different is the fact that it does jumps in a much more challenging way. It actually just beats you up and over with jumps at some corners. And if you're already tired, the BPM just makes it that much harder to do them. If we think about it, Lacrima CSP is a little more brutal. If you actually manage to pass this, either you bracketed or you are very fucking good at this. But I find myself in a hard space trying to imagine how to even get through this one. I generally just die more or less around the first 16th BPM stream. So yeah, that's basically number 1. And there you have it. We have a top 10 finally uploaded and updating the whole standings. Also, if I'm going to make a top 10 for the community, in which you're going to have to vote which are the top hardest songs, then I'm going to just tally up the results and try to make a top 10 based on the answers. If the community is homogeneic with the answers, it should be easy to figure out which are the hardest, but considering that everyone has different weaknesses and strengths, there's going to be a few surprises when I start looking at the Google form. But hey, it's worth a shot. I don't really have many expectations. I just want to really get this one out and have an updated top 10, especially since A3 is now out, so I might as well just update it as far as A20 Plus is concerned. And A3 is already off to a really violent start with 4 18s added at this point, and hell knows how many more we have to see. But hey, we'll probably be talking about which are the hardest and see some really dramatic changes maybe in a year or two. For now, just be safe and have a good one. See ya.
The bass cannon kick it. The bass cannon kick it.